I rise in support, Mr. Speaker, and members of this bill. One of my colleagues approached me on the floor and said, who in their right mind would vote against this bill? And we both chuckled about it. And then, well, now we know. And I don't. This argument, you don't win in your district, and you don't win in a campaign. And the presumption here, in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, I don't think weighs in favor of business. If there is a date, why have the date on the bottle if it's not going to be regulated? And then most consumers, when they see the date, they assume that there's going to be enough time for them to put it in their medicine cabinet or their cupboards or wherever they're going to put it and use it sometime after. And then you got to assume that the manufacturer is going to put the last possible moment without liability that this item can be purchased. So, we just have to assume that. So, here you have a bill that pits infants with business and consumer protection and litigation and all of those issues that come up when we talk about jobs in California and we talk about businesses leaving California. This is a no-brainer. This is easy to do. The date is on the bottle. It's there for everyone to see. Consumers are going to buy it after, even if they see the date, because they're going to assume there's some period of time they can use it after that expiration date. But the retailers and the manufacturers should know better. I think this is from a cost-benefit analysis, I think the weight of the evidence has to go in favor of the children. I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Plan, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. Just want to respond to some of the comments that were made previously. First of all, the comment that the formula or the medication is fine after the expiration date. It's the FDA that establishes the expiration date. There's a standard for doing that. I think that we really are talking about safety. I think that the reason they established the expiration date is because after the expiration date, the food basically starts to degrade, and that's the nutritional value. Now, does 100% of it degrade automatically the day after? No, but that is a date that's been set, that's been determined. That's at the point where the food starts to degrade. Now, I know that some of the other members have brought up the specter of lawsuits. I don't think it takes this bill for someone to go to an attorney and ask for a lawsuit that someone got sold something unsafe. They can put up the expiration date. What this bill actually does, it's not about people suing grocery stores or retailers. This bill is actually a tool for law enforcement when there is systematic selling of unsafe products, particularly for children. And that's what this bill is about. I mean, we don't need to pass a law for someone to file a lawsuit. That standard, we already have a standard with an expiration date that's been set by the FDA. This is really to allow law enforcement and others to be able to address issues when there is systematic selling of unsafe products clearly past the expiration date. And we have consumers, parents, children who can suffer from consumption of food or drugs that really do not meet the standards which we want them to meet. So I urge for an aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 21. The measure passes. File item 131, AB 716. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 716 by Assemblymember Dickinson, an act relating to transportation.
Mr. Dickinson.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Members, AB 716 applies to the Sacramento Regional Transit District and Fresno Area Express. It would eliminate a sunset date for a currently existing passenger safety program. It increases the time period within which infractions can be considered for exclusion from 60 to 90 days, and it establishes that a person in violation of an exclusion order would be guilty of a misdemeanor. Now, this passenger safety program was established as a pilot program by SB 1561, authored by Senator Steinberg in 2008, with a sunset date of January 1 of 2012. It authorized the Sacramento Regional Transit District and Fresno Area Express to implement additional transit security measures to curb passenger misconduct and reduce nuisance behavior. As required by that legislation, both agencies have filed annual reports recently that concluded that the current statute does not provide them with the tools necessary to accomplish the purposes of the Act. This bill would allow those agencies to implement the additional enforcement measures that are recommended. There is no opposition to the bill, and I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, noes 8. The measure passes. File item 132, AB 740. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 740 by Assemblymember Blumenfield, an act relating to personal services contracts.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a bill. It's an accountability bill, a good government bill. What it does is it implements a key recommendation of the California State Auditor to improve government accountability in the handling of personal service contracts that were disapproved by the State Personnel Board. The legislature passed an identical bill last year that went all the way to the governor's office, but unfortunately was vetoed. What this bill does specifically is three main things. It terminate any personal services contract that's been disapproved by the SPB as directed by the board. Second, it provides timely notice to the contractor of the board's decision. And third, it says you need to provide a copy of the notice of the SPP and employee organization to the employee organization that prevailed in that contract challenge. According to the state auditor, absent this tracking, state departments and agencies face no repercussions for ignoring the SPP ruling and failing to terminate unjustified contracts. Nothing in this bill limits the ability of state government to contract for personnel services, and a state agency would be still free to issue contracts for services that are justified under existing law. Again, this is a simple matter of accountability and good government, and I ask for your support.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 17. The measure passes. File item 134, AB 867. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 867 by Assemblymember Swanson, an act relating to elections.
Mr. Swanson.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 867 is a measure that will increase the election participation for many Californians, especially seniors and people with disabilities. AB 867 will expand the list of people who can pick up and drop off a vote by mail ballot to include anyone that the voter has designated as the authorized representative in writing. Consistent, however, with current law, an authorized representative cannot be a candidate or the spouse of a candidate, a paid or volunteer worker of a general purpose committee, control committee, independent expenditure committee, political party, campaign committee of a candidate. This is a common sense measure, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 24. The measure passes. File item 136, AB 766. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 766 by Assemblymember Monning and others, an act relating to public works.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I present Assembly Bill 766 regarding the sharing of information between agencies in the effort to combat the underground economy. California's vast underground economy is thriving, especially given the budget impacts on state agencies' ability to enforce with dwindling financial resources. Assemblymember Berryhill and I have been meeting regularly with agency representatives who are tasked with the responsibility to find and make accountable non-compliant business owners who avoid paying the costs to do business in California. A chorus that is repeated during these coalition meetings is the lack of ability to share information between enforcement agencies that would result in greater success prosecuting violators. AB 766 specifies that enforcement agencies included in the Joint Enforcement Strike Force on the underground economy, as well as any law enforcement agency, shall have access to unmarked or non-redacted copies of certified payroll records on public works projects. These agencies would include Employment Development Department, the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Office of Criminal Justice Planning, the Franchise Tax Board, the Board of Equalization, and the U.S. Department of Justice. A concern has been raised about protecting the information from being shared with the public. Reassurance has been provided by the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office that language already included in the Government Code protects the information from the California Public Records Act. In other words, that personnel information cannot be disclosed subject to a Public Records Act request. If any language or further language is needed to clarify that protection, I will amend the bill. This bill would provide for greater coordinated efforts between state agencies without having to individually reconstruct cases for prosecution, in each case with limited financial resources. This is a necessary tool for collecting revenue owed to the state of California at a time where every nickel and dime is essential. Most importantly, AB 766 provides another safeguard protecting our compliant business owners who cannot compete with unlawful practices and unfair competitive advantages of those operating their businesses in the underground economy. I want to thank and acknowledge my colleague, Mr. Berryhill, for his leadership as well in convening the meetings with the agencies, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, I'm very proud to be a co-author, principal co-author on AB 766 with my good friend and colleague Bill Monning. The measure takes a very vital step in allowing the state to better fight and coordinate efforts in attacking the underground economy by allowing state agencies to better communicate with each other. In the several meetings that Assemblymember Monning and I have conducted with those agencies, this was a proposal that just kept coming up time and time again when the questions were raised on what tools we could give them to better coordinate their activities on the underground economy. The underground economy is a problem that must be addressed in our state. It's estimated that it is worth anywhere from $60 to $140 billion a year. That's a lot of tax revenues that, quite frankly, we'd love to see in this state that go uncollected. The business that is conducted in this area punishes and strangles honest businesses. No matter how you feel about individual regulations that this legislature has enacted, we should not be punishing those who follow the law. Members, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Morell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, in the Labor Committee, I raised some very deep concerns about AB 766 relating to privacy issues. Now, I've spoken to the authors of this measure, and they have assured me that amendments will be taken to clarify that a business's payroll records will be protected. Therefore, I will be supporting this measure today with the understanding that as this bill moves through, those amendments will be made. Thank you.
Mr. Monning, if you wish to briefly close, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank Mr. Morell, Mr. Berryhill. On Mr. Morell's issues, I addressed those. We do remain open to any amendment to fortify that protection. As indicated, the government code would prevent any of that information already from being released. Members, I ask for your aye vote. Let's protect compliant business owners and workers and protect our state. I ask for your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote, ayes 58, noes 8. The measure passes. Members, we have over 30 bills left to consider, so if you could just keep that in mind when you speak on the floor. Just over 30 bills to consider today, members. File item 139, AB 1236. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1236 by Assemblymember Fong, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Fong.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and members. E-Verify is a voluntary internet-based program created in 1997 that supplements the I-9 employment eligibility verification process. It allows employers to electronically verify U.S. citizen and non-citizen employees' employment eligibility with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration. The effectiveness of E-Verify, however, has been questioned by several state and federal entities, including the United States Government Accountability Office. A 2007 evaluation of the program commissioned by the Department of Homeland Security found that E-Verify database is not sufficiently up to date to meet the requirements for accurate information. As a result, it is estimated up to 3.6 million workers a year could be misidentified if E-Verify were to become mandatory. This bill would provide employers the flexibility to decide if participating in E-Verify would be beneficial to their businesses. AB 1236 does not prohibit the use of E-Verify. Rather, it prohibits the state, cities, and counties from requiring the use of E-Verify by private employers. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I think I rise in opposition to this bill because I think it is critically important that we require the use of E-Verify. It's been rated as over 96% effective. We need to protect jobs and have those jobs be available to those who are lawfully here in our country, who are legally authorized to work. We should not allow people who are not authorized to work to be working in our workforce because in many cases they're not paying taxes. And half of our revenues come from personal income tax. This is a way that we could actually increase revenues to our state while supporting the rule of law and upholding legal immigration and honoring those who do things the right way. I urge a no vote.
Ms. Grove.
I also rise in opposition to this bill. You know, we put employees through training and they have to have a magnifying glass to look at Social Security cards because there's a little identifying notices or notifications that are on a Social Security card that allow employers to verify that it's a valid card, certain things. But to use E-Verify when we switched over to that, it's so convenient and it's so easy for employers to be able just to punch in a number and get an instant response that it's okay to hire this person. So that makes something easy for employers. So, you know, as we pass laws that hinder employers from being able to provide jobs and we pass laws that actually assault employers and cause them to flee our state, can we just, this one law just makes it easier and makes it better for us and employers. And so I would just appreciate if you guys would vote no. Thanks.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Fong, you may close.
Well, it gives employers the option to use E-Verify or not. And to create jobs and to stimulate our economy, we shouldn't burden this on our employers. And so I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 20. The measure passes. File item 140, AB 1393. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1393 by Assembly Committee on Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media, and Act relating to employment.
Ms. Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm presenting AB 1393 to allow persons who issue film permits to advise the Labor Commission where children are working. The purpose of the bill is to provide statutory authority for the exchange of this information between those who know where films are being shot and the Labor Commissioner's Division of Labor Standards Enforcement. The information sharing will help DLSE enforce child welfare laws by letting them know where children are actually working. Employers have an existing duty to make this information available to the Labor Commission. AB 1393 simply extends this duty to the film permit agencies while providing proper safeguards and guidelines for the use of the information. AB 1393 makes it clear that there is no duty to collect or keep personal information at film permit offices. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 24. The measure passes. File item 144, AB 1217. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1217 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to assisted reproductive technology.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 1217 codifies existing California case law that recognizes the intended parent or parents in an assisted reproduction agreement as the natural parents of a child. For 2 decades, case law has dictated the law in this burgeoning field. As the technology available to prospective parents expands, and as courts have asked for legislative guidance, this bill ensures that children are not unnecessarily thrust into parental limbo when disputes about parentage arise. The bill also keeps up with the changing social characteristics found in many households today by modernizing aspects of the Uniform Parentage Act. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I urge all of my colleagues on my side of the aisle to recognize that parentage is not in who donates the genetic components, it's in who raises the child. I commend the author for bringing this forward and urge support.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 68, noes 0. The measure passes. File item 150, AB 1403. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1403 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary and Act relating to Civil Actions.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is a bill with unanimous bipartisan support in committee. It has no opposition. The bill does 2 things. First, it strengthens protections against jury bias. The other thing it does is it clarifies the processes when a court adjusts a jury award either up or down. It unites the Chamber of Commerce and the consumer attorneys. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 69, noes 1. The measure passes. File item 152, AB 1386. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1386 by Assemblymember Bradford, an act relating to women, minority, and disabled veteran business enterprise procurement.
Mr. Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the state and federal government makes public funds available to expanding broadband services in rural and underserved communities, it's important that we encourage companies that will benefit from these funds to provide contract opportunities to small businesses owned by women, minorities, and disabled veterans. In the state where women and people of color make up more than 50% of the population and small business employ over 50% of the workforce, it's essential to encourage the growth of diverse small businesses in order to achieve economic success. AB 1386 will encourage cable television corporations, direct broadcast satellite providers to voluntarily adopt a plan on increasing women, minority, and disabled business enterprise procurement and to voluntarily report the activity to the state legislature on an annual basis, especially in light of the Comcast, Universal, NBC merger. Current law already requires utilities to report on their procurement with diverse businesses. This reporting has encouraged major corporations such as AT&T, San Diego Gas and Electric to work with California diverse business owners. And the most recent report, utility spending on diverse procurement increased from $3.5 billion in 2008 to $4.3 billion in 2009, an increase of 23%. The same potential for reporting and achieving existing cable television corporations, direct broadcast satellite companies exist in this industry as well, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 50, noes 20. The measure passes. File item 171, AB 818. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 818 by Assemblymember Blumenfield, an act relating to recycling.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you're one of the 7 million Californians living in an apartment, chances are you're not able to recycle where you live. Fewer than 40% of persons living in apartment buildings have access to residential recycling, compared to 70% of those who live in single-family homes. It's time to ensure that all Californians have access to recycling. This bill is the Renters' Right to Recycle Act, and it would require owners of apartment buildings of 5 or more units to provide recycling services to their tenants. The bill is effectively identical to AB 473, which went all the way through the process to the governor with no opposition. No groups opposing. We worked very hard with all the divergent interests to remove opposition. The language reflects extensive negotiations with stakeholders, and it was crafted to be flexible rather than prescriptive in order to help building owners meet the recycling objective. The bill is necessary because there are too many renters who do not have access to recycling at their apartment buildings, despite local jurisdictions that make those recycling services available. The only reason why recycling should not be available is if it's physically impossible, for which AB 818 provides exemptions. We know that expanding recycling to 2.4 million apartments will make a difference in our solid waste diversion efforts. Currently, only 15% of apartment building waste is diverted. Compare that to 50% for single-family homes. And studies have shown that communities have exceeded that 50% recycling rate for multifamily dwellings simply by making those services available to tenants. Providing recycling services at apartment buildings is one of the most effective means for increasing recycling and achieving the benefits for the environment and our community, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Chesbrough.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you've heard me brag on California's achievement of over 50% waste diversion. We lead the nation, we lead the world, but we've got to keep moving. And I have a bill to expand that diversion goal to 75%. This bill is a very, very important component in continuing to move us forward in that leadership to reduce landfilling, to conserve resources, to stimulate our economy with green jobs. I'm proud to co-author it. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 48, noes 23. The measure passes. File item 174, AB 1045, Big Papa Norby. Clerk.
Assembly Bill 1045 by Assembly Member Norby, an act relating to local government.
Mr. Norby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 1045, which is sponsored by the California Association of State Treasurers and Tax Collectors, because they're the ones that are responsible to make sure that bond deals, and especially school bond arrangements, are done in a transparent manner and above board. This bill, if enacted, will end the pay-to-play practice whereby Wall Street brokerage firms arrange to finance the campaign, do the polling, contribute to the bond election success, and then have leverage to demand and secure unbidded contracts to do the bond work once it's over. Now, if we as candidates had any kind of arrangement like this with our campaign consultant, and our contributors contribute to my campaign, do my polling, run my campaign, and we have a signed contract that once I win, I'll hire your entire staff as my staff, of course it would be illegal and would be in jail. And yet this kind of linkage does go on in bond elections. Now, school bond elections are important, and they're too important to be manipulated by those who only want the bond business. These are community discussions and should be resolved at the community level. It should be an open campaign with pros and cons discussed. And these bond elections should be determined by community need, not Wall Street greed. And I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Norby moves the call. File item 176, AB 1125. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1125 by Assembly Member Chadjian, an act relating to wastewater collection and treatment.
Mr. Chadjian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm pleased to present AB 1125, a bill which will allow San Luis Obispo County to offset service rates for qualifying low-income households that are unable to afford wastewater service rates in the Los Osos Community Services District. AB 1125 is necessary to meet the needs of disadvantaged families, children, and elderly community members that are living in Los Osos. Every community member should have the same access to wastewater treatment regardless of economic status. A sanitation rate offset program will meet the needs of the most disadvantaged living in the Los Osos Community Services District without negatively impacting other ratepayers. AB 1125 has received no votes. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 67, noes 0. The measure passes. File item 177, AB 1216. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1216 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to land use.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill empowers tenants of affordable housing and local governments to enforce provisions of current law aimed at retaining housing as affordable. Current law requires that notice be given to a list of entities, including tenants and affected public entities, when an affordable housing development is going to lose its subsidy or in any way is at risk of losing its affordable status. It does not, however, give affected tenants and cities standing to enforce these provisions. This bill will grant such standing. The intent statutes like this one is to ensure that affordable housing units remain affordable for the tenants who live in them and to ensure that cities are able to retain their affordable housing stock. This bill will help facilitate this. Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 46, noes 23. The measure passes. File item 183, AB 246. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 246 by Assemblymember Wieckowski, an act relating to water quality.
Mr. Wieckowski.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 243 corrects an anomaly in state law that prevents regional water quality control boards from referring cases to district attorneys and city attorneys. Under current law, for civil cases involving violations of Porter Cologne Act, only the Attorney General can act on behalf of the water boards. District attorneys and city attorneys can be referred cases that involve criminal violations of the Porter Cologne Act, but not the civil cases. This bill will improve enforcement against polluters and protect water quality. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 43, noes 25. The measure passes. File item 182, AB 215. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 215 by Assemblymember Bell, an act relating to emergency services.
Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Last year, the governor signed into law the Emergency Air Medical Transportation Act, which was my bill, AB 2173. This bill, AB 215, provided for an increased Medi-Cal funding for emergency air ambulance transportation by imposing a flat $4 fee on each motor vehicle in violation in California, with the exception of our parking tickets. The bill today seeks to address a shortfall of the original bill from last year. It's a cleanup bill, by requiring the counties to generate a report to the legislature and the State Department of Health Care Services. This will assist the State Department of Health Care Services in helping to estimate and project revenues deposited into this fund. I urge and I vote.
Mr. Logue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to AB 212 because it will cost counties money they do not have. We should not be placing more mandates on the counties in this budget climate. I respectfully request a no vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Bell, you may close.
Mr. Speaker and members, this bill simply asks the counties to prepare a revenue estimate of the money they collect so it can be fairly apportioned, and it does not impose any mandates on the county. In fact, it actually will generate Medi-Cal dollars. It will generate income for the county. So I urge and I vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 24. The measure passes. File item 186, AB 507. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 507 by Assemblymember Hayashi, an act relating to public health.
Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 507 eliminates barriers to appropriate pain management, improving the quality of life for cancer patients. In the last 20 years, California has led the nation in making many important legislative changes related to pain management. However, some inconsistencies still remain in the law that restrict healthcare practice and interferes with patient access to effective pain management. The bill has no opposition. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 49, noes 15. The measure passes. File item 184, AB 286. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 286 by Assemblymember Bill Berryhill, and Act relating to streets and highways.
Mr. Berryhill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, recently Caltrans purchased large amounts of property in northern Stanislaus County to construct the 120 bypass around the city of Oakdale, but never built the facilities. As such, Caltrans expects to declare this property surplus property and is now working with the Stanislaus Council of Governments, Stanislaus County, as well as the city of Oakdale to plan for the sale of these properties. An interregional alternative called the North County Corridor to the dropped Oakdale Bypass project is currently being pursued together by Caltrans and a joint powers authority whose members consist of the cities of Modesto, Oakdale, Riverbank, Stanislaus, Stanislaus County, Stanislaus Council of Government, and Caltrans. If enacted, AB 286 would provide that the proceeds from the eventual sale of the unneeded parcels will be used to fund the North County Corridor project, as was the intent of the money spent by Caltrans originally. AB 286 is modeled after a bill that passed out of this House and was signed into law in 2009. This bill has yet to receive a single no vote, and I urge an aye vote on this measure.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. The measure passes. File item 188, AB 551. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 551 by Assemblymember Campos, and Act relating to public contracts.
Ms. Campos.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 551 will strengthen the state's Prevailing Wage Act by increasing the penalties for abuse of the Act. Currently, contractors and subcontractors who are found in violation of the state's Prevailing Wage Act pay minor monetary penalty that does not act as a real deterrent. Though these penalties and fines have not been reviewed or adjusted in nearly 10 years. This bill coincides with the state's auditor's recommendation to the governor asking him to have state agencies and departments review the adjusted fines and penalties that have not been adjusted in the last 2 years. It receives broad support, and members, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 47, noes 23. The measure passes. File item 189, AB 684. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 684 by Assemblymember Block, and Act relating to community colleges.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. California's community college districts, like us, will be redistricting this year following new census figures. Since the last redistricting, there have been many changes in election law relating to community college elections, and the purpose of this bill is to bring the community colleges into conformity with these new requirements. AB 684 establishes a procedure for community college districts and their governing boards to change their election system. It has had bipartisan support, and there is no opposition on file. I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Logue.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of AB 684. I think it's an excellent bill. It's good for the community colleges, and I urge the support. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 68, noes 1. The measure passes. File item 191, AB 693. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 693 by Assemblymember Huffman and others, an act relating to anatomical gifts.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Currently, there are more than 110,000 people on the National Organ Transplant waiting list. Nearly 21,000 of those, or 19% of the national total, live right here in California. And of those waiting, 1 in 3 will die due to a shortage of organs. In 2009, the Department of Motor Vehicles processed 8.3 million driver's licenses, and unfortunately only 25% of those checked yes to be organ and tissue donors. So we need to do much, much more to address the desperate need for organ and tissue donors. This bill takes a small but important step to address that problem by requiring a hyperlink on the DMV website to the Donate Life website and a confirmation page when everyone goes to register their vehicles that gives you an opportunity to become an organ and tissue donor. It will also provide a voluntary $2 contribution in that process to Donate Life so that the proceeds can go to benefit organ donation, education, and awareness. There is no opposition to this bill, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Mr. Logue.
Yeah, I rise in support of this bill, and I want to commend the author. I think it's excellent, and I urge my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Ms. Harkey.
Hi, Mr. Speaker and members. The reason there was no vote in appropriations is I was a little conflicted. There are very major state costs potentially connected with this, and so we did not vote in approps. Vote your conscience. Thank you.
Mr. Huffman, would you like to close?
Respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 71, no 0. The measure passes. File item 192, AB 751. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 751 by Assemblymember Furutani, an act relating to education finance.
Mr. Furutani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. School districts are particularly affected by the state budget turmoil that we find ourselves in, and their funding levels tend to be unpredictable and estimates are unreliable. AB 751 provides a more transparent and reasonable process for school districts that are expected to craft 3 consecutive one-year budgets. AB 751 changes the current school district budget process in 3 ways. 1, it distinguishes between those school districts truly at financial risk and those flagged because of unpredictable budget projections. 2, requires budget actions taken solely because of projections of the 3rd budget year to be discussed separately at a school board meeting. Excuse me, brother. Thank you. Allow school districts to opt out of doing the budget for the 3rd year if approved by the County Office of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction. I would note that the LA County Office of Education has removed their opposition, and I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 47, noes 25. The measure passes. File item 194, AB 846. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 846 by Assemblymember Bonilla, an act relating to public social services.
Ms. Bonilla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 846 makes some technical changes to existing law to further protect foster youth from the effects of identity theft. Former foster youth are particularly vulnerable to identity theft because their personal information often changes hands. Specifically, this bill allows the County Welfare Department or the Department of Social Services to request a credit report from all 3 credit reporting agencies on behalf of the foster youth in the year of their 16th birthday. If identity theft is detected, the bill authorizes the requesting entity to refer them to an approved government agency or nonprofit organization that provides assistance with resolving identity theft. Currently, LA County is carrying out a pilot program that uses the batch process to submit requests to all 3 credit reporting agencies. So far, they have submitted more than 2,000 requests and cleared up 300 credit reports on behalf of foster youth in the past year. This program has been largely very successful. Under this bill, LA County would continue this program, which accounts for roughly half of all foster youth in the state of California, as well as serve for a model for other counties and the state itself. Members, AB 846 alleviates inefficiency in the current law. The bill is supported by the County Welfare Directors Association, CSAC, and has received no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 56, no 7. The measure passes. File item 196, AB 913. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 913 by Assemblymember Fuhrer, an act relating to hazardous waste.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is a bill that has enjoyed strong support from the small business community. It has no opposition. It has bipartisan support in committee. The purpose of the bill is to expand upon our existing green business certification programs in local jurisdictions throughout the state. It's good for small business. It's good for the environment. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 49, noes 20. The measure passes. File item 197, AB 929. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 929 by Assemblymember Wieckowski, an act relating to debtor exemptions.
Mr. Wieckowski.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 929 is a bill that I authored, which is designed to provide appropriate and much-needed relief for California debtors. Current exemptions under bankruptcy law can leave debtors with too little to effectively start their lives over. Exemptions for home equity, tools of one's trade, and automobile are particularly insufficient. AB 929 would provide exemptions at levels that more accurately reflect the needs of California families so that debtors are left with enough resources to get the fresh start that they expect. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 53, noes 19. The measure passes. File item 198 to AB 1015. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1015 by Assemblymember Charles Calderon, an act relating to social services.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, once every 3 years, counties are required to submit a California Child and Family Services Review, or better known as CCFSR. They need to talk with stakeholders listed in statute and come out with a self-assessment and county improvement plan within their existing budgets so that they can form services better in terms of the children that are under their care. This bill simply expands the list to include former foster children, foster care providers, county child welfare agencies, and county child welfare workers, and then requires under separate title the list of identified operational improvements and the rationale behind them, because usually this report is hundreds of pages, and this makes it easier to access if we do it under separate title. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 46, noes 24. The measure passes. So we're going to go back real quick to file item 195, AB 864. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 864 by Assemblymember Huffman, an act relating to electricity.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Continuing to bring you bipartisan bills this morning, I want to present AB 864, which involves the Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP, which is a program that makes one-time upfront incentives available to energy customers to offset the cost of installing renewable energy systems that can meet their own load. This is a bill that makes the SGIP program more compatible for large energy customers that currently pay into the program by expanding the size of eligible projects up to 10 megawatts and increasing the cap on incentives from 3 megawatts to 5 megawatts. This is going to encourage distributed generation in big chunks around the state of California, which of course is the goal of the SGIP program. It's going to stimulate the installation of clean and ultra-efficient energy generation technologies and cut down on peak demands as a way to help prevent another energy crisis. When large energy customers install these distributed generation systems, we all benefit. Utilities save money, ratepayers save by avoiding the need for new power procurement for their customers and new transmission. And this is also a bill that will help many businesses in this state meet their AB 32 goals. Finally, this is a jobs bill. This is going to spur the creation of construction and operation jobs with these facilities. It's also going to help many large businesses, including manufacturing businesses right here in California, keep jobs in our state. It has passed out of committee unanimously with bipartisan support and is supported by a very unique coalition of business, environmental, and labor groups. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 71, no 0. The measure passes. Just want to congratulate the membership and thank everyone for their participation today. We've done over 100 bills, so thank you for all your cooperation in helping us move along forward fast. Total of 119 bills, members. Thank you. We also have an announcement, members, really quickly. We have not formally congratulated Mr. Norby for the birth of his son, Jonathan Cardona Norby. Please join me in thanking Mr. Norby. Members, we also have one item on call today. It's file item 174, AB 1045. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 45, noes 14. The measure passes. So this concludes the business on the daily file. We're going to now move to adjourn in memories. Okay, well, session schedule is as follows. Friday, May 20th, no check-in session, no session. Monday, May 23, floor session at 12 noon. So all other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hall moves. Mr. Calderon seconds. That this House stand adjourned until Monday, May 23 at 12 noon. Quorum call is lifted.
Okay, sorry.
How do I've never done this. What do you do? Just say your name?
Here, yeah.
It's already on.
Lowenthal, file 156, from aye to not voting. Also,
I'll let him announce it. Go ahead.
Yeah, he has to announce it.
Lowenthal Assembly Bill 259, aye to not voting.
Lowenthal,
File 202 from aye to not voting.
Lowenthal, Assembly Bill 1180, aye to not voting.
Thank you. You're done. Vote change for Yamada. There will be 2 of them. File item 86, AB 270, from aye to not voting.
Yamada, Assembly Bill 270, aye to not voting.
File item 175, AB 1103, from not voting to aye. Oh, is that okay? All right, thank you. Got it.
No problem.
Compos, file item 209, Bill AB 42, from aye to no.
Compos, Assembly Bill 42, aye to no.
Assemblymember Gaines, file number 197, Bill AB 929, from aye to no.
Gaines, Assembly Bill 929, aye to no.
Also file number 87, Bill AB 360, request aye to no.
Gaines, Assembly Bill 260, aye to no.
Timmy, you ready? Miller, AB 913, no to aye.
Miller, Assembly Bill 913, no to aye.
Thank you. Assemblymember Olson, AB 475, no to aye, and AB 740.
Olson, Assembly Bill 475, no to aye.
And AB 740, aye to not voting.
Olson, Assembly Bill 740, aye to not voting.
Okay, we're now going to move to a reading of the consent calendar. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 709.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1265.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1266.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 840.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 46.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Joint Resolution 9.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 781.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 943.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 966.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1430.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 62.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 174.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 399.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 408 with urge.
I 68 no 0 on the urgency. I 68 no 0 on the measure.
Assembly Bill 418.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 511.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 549.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 585.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 629.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 668.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 697.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 787.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 826.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 873 with urge.
I 68 no 0 on the urgency. I 68 no 0 on the matter.
Assembly Bill 1350.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1352.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1382.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1413 with urge.
I 68 no 0 on the urgency. I 68 no 0 on the matter.
Assembly Bill 931.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 964.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1055.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1076.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1097.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1122.
I 68 no 0.
Assembly Bill 1142.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1152.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1194.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1201.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1211.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1226.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1277.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 1329.
I-6800.
Assembly Bill 280.
I-6800.
Assembly